Hello, good day and salutations. It is I, Byron D0, and welcome to my art channel. I've been working on various webcomics for the better part of a decade, so I thought I'd share some of my knowledge and experience. I'm by no means an expert. In fact, I have more abandoned projects than I want to admit. A lot of it was loss of interest or a defeatist attitude. Having shit mental health was a big part of the instability of my projects. But I want to go over this crucial part of my art journey: webcomics. Now, this is a brief aside, but my first foray into comics was a very short-lived series called Poltergeist Inc. When I really think about it, it was essentially a rip-off of Yu Yu Hakusho. Yeah, that's been buried in the annals of history. I'm not particularly proud of it. I took a lot of ideas from different anime and manga I was into at the time. It was probably one of my more derivative pieces, and that's going to be an ongoing theme as I continue to talk about this. That being said, the idea was I based the characters off of people that I knew, friends, acquaintances, whatever, and we ran a supernatural detective agency. My character was an Oni. I worked with a vampire, a water sprite, and a werewolf. And we just went on an adventure solving cases. And I just went balls to the wall with it. Like I tend to do with a lot of my projects, I put the cart before the horse, though. And that was ultimately my undoing. That being said, it was a valuable lesson in my comic making process. My next attempt at a webcomic series was called Twin Shadow. Again, I based it on my friend group at the time. We were pretty close-knit, almost like a band of brothers. But that's not the important bit. I created this extravagant world that was very Japan-inspired, with both science and magic. It was pretty cool in hindsight, but so my main character's name was Yotsuba Kensei, and Kensei had a twin named Kwame, and Kensei was on this quest of revenge because Kwame killed their father, and he was teamed up with a blind warrior, as well as a wolf demon and a monk. And I was really trying to go like with the whole four gods thing in Shinto religion with their powers, and a lot of things happened. I learned early on that, like, if you're gonna do this kind of story, probably don't get so personal with the characterizations. Like, it's cool if you want to make characters that are inspired by people in your life, but like, don't commit so much of those personalities to the character, because it can really mess with your creative process. I had a falling out with some of the people that inspire these characters, and it took the wind out of my sails. So after a while, I'm just like, no, I'm just gonna drop it. My next comic series idea thing was probably my most short-lived. I called it Welcome to the Real World, and this was probably my one and only attempt at straight comedy. I tried basing the panels and the comics off of different experience I had in my life. I've never been the most confident in my comedic chops to begin with, so when I tried to make these jokes, I really struggled. And I'm just so self-conscious because I don't believe I have the best presence whenever I'm trying to tell a story or whenever I'm telling jokes or whatever. No reason why I ended this one except that I just got bored with it. Actually, I lied. That was not my only foray into comedy. When I got fresh out of undergrad and university, I got this idea that I wanted to be a t-shirt mogul. So I created this brand called 100 Zombies. And I was trying to turn this into a media empire. And part of that empire was a webcomic about the characters on the shirts, the zombies themselves. For a good couple of months I tried to do like little gag comics about the zombies. Again, not much feedback. And after a good couple of years trying to sell the shirts and whatnot, and just not really getting anywhere, I kind of just hung it up. So in 2021, my most recent project, I started working on this series called Codename Blackbird. It was based off of a bunch of ideas that I had in middle school and high school. Blackbird started his life as a Batman knockoff named Raptor. And initially he was a white guy from a city called Phoenix Bay. Eventually, with taking a few ideas from friends that kind of put little bugs in my ear, I changed the name to Blackbird. I changed his motif. I made Blackbird a ninja. And the cool part of the story was, he was a descendant of Yasuke. And his entire family were part of a clan called the Yasuke clan. And it was a revenge story, but it was also a superhero story. And I haven't exactly given up on that one, but the work that I put out so far, I'm not really proud of it now. It's online. I'm going to repurpose it at some point, but for right now, it's on indefinite hiatus. And now we go to present day. This was a series that I started also in 2021, but the machinations of this particular project I've been thinking of since I was in undergrad for a good couple of years. Even before that. So, little backtracking on the story. I, for some reason, in middle school, high school, came up with this idea of Little Red Riding Hood as a Batman-esque type figure. I don't know why I did it. It just, I would draw it in my spare time, and I thought it looked kind of cool. It was always in the back of my mind. I never thought I was going to do anything with it. And I remember at one point I had her with a sidekick, and they were just jumping through the city, fighting evil wolf-like creatures at one point. It was pretty weird. Then, fast forward to undergrad and college. I was a member of my local anime club at the university. We were talking about ideas for fundraising, and being an officer, I had a little pool, and so I put the bug in the air, everybody in the committee, about doing an anthology series, because we had a lot of very talented artists in our club. So I figured, what better way to raise money than to do like a little comic anthology and have us put our stuff together. And I came up with the idea for what would become now Sisterhoods. I told the president my idea for the story, and the president of the club, he's a good guy and all, but he's very set in his way. So I gave him ideas like, yeah, that's good, but how about we do this? Like, no, it's gotta be like this. I'm like, oh, who's drawing and writing this? Of course, like many things in my undergrad college's anime club, it never came to fruition. So we dropped it, but the idea was in my head, and I'd keep coming back to it. I would draw stuff out. I would draw characters. I came up with a bunch of different ideas for cool characters. But I had the synopsis in my head. The world has gone to heck because of these wolf-like creatures that were mutated from men. I call them now in the series Lycosapiens. And in the midst of all this, the geneticist responsible for this is Red's grandmother, who I named Hortense Taylor. And Red is named Savannah now, and it's evolved into this interesting coming of age story. I'm posting on the webtoons. I'm really proud of it, and I really hope that I can share the story with as many people as possible, because I put a lot of my heart and soul into it. So that is my webcomic journey, at least for the most part. I've learned a lot from it. It's definitely been a humbling experience. I've gotten a lot of advice on anatomy and whatnot, and I've even read up on other comic artists. I've been inspired even by the manga series Bakuman. Not Bakugan. Bakugan's a ball game. But I digress. Bakuman, where the characters, they drew up a bunch of different ideas, and they just kept doing things until they found something that worked. And while I don't have the whole Japanese manga industry to go on, I've just been trying to find what works for me, and the current series that I'm working on now, I'm really proud of. It's something I've been working on for a very long time, and unlike other projects that I've done, it feels the least derivative. But it took trial and error. It took me going over what I really want to say in my story to really make this thing that I'm proud of. And anybody watching this that is considering starting a webcomic, just keep that in mind, that your first one doesn't have to be perfect. It's all a learning experience. So just keep going with it. Eventually you'll find your voice. Eventually you'll find your story. Eventually you'll find your way. So until next time, this is Byron D0 or BD0 Art saying, Cha! Matana!